Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Chatham. Today we're going to go over more sci-fi RPG stuff. This is going to be a bit of a tips, tricks, and tutorial on how to make a sci-fi interior ship combat page for your players. I did this for my players using Stars Without Number. This could apply to just about anybody, any system that you're using for Roll20, and it'll take advantage of some of the features that are found within Roll20 that maybe get a little bit overlooked sometimes. First thing you're going to want to do is think about what is my system. Like, if you aren't familiar, intimately familiar with how ship combat in your game that you're running works, or at least how you want to run it, then you should do that first because that information is going to be plugged directly into the screen that you're seeing. The reason that is because it should hold actual weight. It shouldn't be just a bunch of filler stuff that doesn't actually mean anything in the game. Like, the players should feel more like they're actually interacting with things that have impact and purpose within the game, and it's just going to help you keep track of stuff. Just good overall to make it kind of track as much as possible. Flavor stuff can be added on top, but make sure your bases are covered first. Just a little bit of background on this. I'm actually, like, in real life, I'm an avionics engineer currently, so I relish the opportunity to actually get in there and make something like this because I work on stuff like this all day, but to actually make something from scratch for my players to use was really fun for me, and using some of the things that I've learned throughout doing this in the real world. So I'm going to try to impart some of that knowledge on you right now. So you're going to start with a blank page. Make sure that in your settings for the page, the way that I do this, and it'll depend on what you use for your images and pictures, but I made the background black. I ensured that our grid was in hex, and then I changed the color of my hexes to black. That actually just looked very good with the GIF that I was using in this to make the animated radar image. This is going to be important, though, to take note of these things and change them to add flavor and add a little bit of interactability to your page. Make sure that it kind of fits with whatever images and features you're using. The next thing you want to do is have a central image within this. There needs to be something that's the foreground of everything going on, and that needs to be a map, because this is going to be a first-person image, something that makes it feel like the players are inside the ship, but you want them to have SA, situational awareness of everything going on around them. So the center should be a map. If you want to use the radar GIF that I had in mine, then that I found that on dribble.com that has 3 B's, and the artist's name was Brad Ellis that posted this. So you can go and copy this and throw it into your game. Just note that because it's a GIF, if you haven't used a GIF on Roll20, it'll take a few minutes to actually upload. The longer it takes to upload, the higher the quality. So with this one, it takes a good amount of time to upload. Just let it do its thing. And once it's uploaded, I actually usually work with things on the token layer, and then I'll move it over to the map layer after I'm kind of done, and I know that it's where it needs to be, so it doesn't affect anything. You're just going to want to get this thing sized up so that it actually fits the center of your screen, and it's the focal point, but leaves a little bit of space on the sides for additional information. So I've got it just about centered here. If you wanted more detail on whether it's centered or not, you could increase the visibility of your hexes and change the color, or do whatever you need to. But now that we have this here, this is what's going to be used as our map. And that way, your player ship is the center. It is in the crosshairs at all times. And then enemy ships will move around. If they move around, you're going to move the enemy ships accordingly. But this is a much more realistic depiction of what you would see within a ship, not necessarily this third-person big map with everything around it and you moving a ship and then moving a ship. This would be more realistic, where they are the center and everything going on around them is depicted around them. I've moved my GIF down to the map layer, and now you can see those hexes. You can see how this is a really cool way to do this, because the hexes are applicable to the radar only. The next thing that we're going to want to do is draw some shapes. These are going to be used for, you're going to draw some boxes. These are going to be used for your caution panels to give some additional information about what's going on. You're just going to want to make one on the left side. You can use the Roll20 draw boxes, or you can use another application and plug them in, whatever you feel. But you're going to want to make these symmetrical on either side by drawing one, and then copy it, paste it to the other side, and try to put it in a symmetrical spot. Once you're done with that, you're going to make 2 more just underneath each. Now, the left-hand side, we're going to use this as a master caution area. The right-hand side, we're going to use this as a master warning area. Now, you can do this however you want, but basically how this works is in a real aircraft, there's going to be what is known as a caution panel, or at least an alert message dialog box somewhere for the crew. Now that's going to contain information that they need to know about the status of the aircraft, and usually it's color coded, especially if it's a military aircraft, to where a red would be considered a warning, which is something that is an imminent threat to the crew or the aircraft. And then yellows are going to be cautions, something noteworthy, a potential threat to the aircraft or crew safety. And then other messages might be in amber, or not amber, a cyan color or a white color, something like that, something to just like notify the crew. An example of each would be like a warning might be that there's an engine fire, and then a caution might be that your fuel is low, and then just an advisory might be something in white might be the state of your antenna, whether it's deployed or stowed or something like that. So I'm going to reflect those in here. I'm going to put messages for them, and I'm going to put warning lights and caution lights. But they're actually going to have something to do with real features in the game and real mechanics. Start with your caution lights. For me, I actually went into Photoshop. I have Photoshop, an account there, and I made something that looked like a warning or a caution light because I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. But one option that I considered would be if you were to go to Google Images and then search for a caution light. There are some images of things that you might be able to use. If you dial it down by saying maybe master caution light, then you might get some things from an actual aircraft, and then something like this you could save the image and crop it and then insert it in there. But to me it didn't fit the aesthetic that I was looking for. It's really up to you. Find something that you could use. Another option might be to go to, there's a website called Flat Icons, and you could look for PNG images of maybe a red exclamation point and a amber exclamation point, and those could be what you use instead. Once you have those placed, you can put those directly to the GM layer. If you're not familiar with the GM layer, you're going to be able to see it, but the players will not. So as soon as something is put in the GM layer, it's basically invisible to players, and you can see it in this faded color. And next we'll go on to the messages. For the messages, you can start to get a little creative with this, but also keep in mind, like I said, your system. And remember, a caution might be something that is a potential threat to the aircraft or to the crew, in this case the spacecraft, that they would need to know about and would just be alerted to. Things that are actually in the game that I decided to use might be a fuel low light or something like that. So I'll put a few in here just as an example. Okay, so here I've put a few examples, and some of these are a little homebrew, just making things up, and some of them aren't. So fuel low is pretty self-explanatory. If your players are low on fuel, there's something you can give them, or maybe if they have a ship crisis or something like that, maybe fuel is something that might get affected. And then other ones, I decided to give their own names, even though they have an actual effect in the game. And here's how you can do that. As far as aviation, put it all caps. That's what it's going to always be in a caution panel or an alert system panel. And then abbreviate things. So, for example, weapons, this would be how that would be abbreviated, basically just the consonants that were important. A laser painted, if in ship combat and stars without number, if the enemy has a specific system targeted, they maybe were using a laser to do that, and the laser painted basically just means there's an enemy that has a laser on you. I'm using radar lock as opposed to a detection lock. You could just write detection lock if you like, but I like the sound of radar lock better. This would be antenna deployed. This would be something homebrew. A great way to also add some flavor to it might be this, which is make up an acronym. That's what engineers do anyway. So think of some system that might be on your ship. So this was Automatic Flight Management System. I just made that up. AFMS. I'm not kidding. That's literally how it might be. From aircraft to aircraft, whether it's an F-16 or a bomber, each one has different systems. They all have different acronyms, even if they do the exact same thing. So go for it and play around. The warnings are going to be important. For the warnings, you should absolutely put things that are real in the game and threats to whatever spaceship you are. Because remember, if you put them in here and you use them, you might dig yourself a hole. If it doesn't exist in the game, you're going to have to make it up, and you're going to have to figure out some sort of dynamic for it. There's nothing wrong with that. If you can come up with something that works and you would like it, then by all means put it in there. But the rule books or whatever is in the book of the system that you're using is a good place to start with these. I used ship crises for this. Things that can go wrong in Stars Without Number. All right, so here's some examples of ones that are actually within the game, and this is how you could change the wording to make it a little bit more intense and a little bit more realistic. Once you have all of these messages for both of them, go ahead and send all of these to the GM layer, and remember that each one of these should have its own text box. You shouldn't be having multiple in one text box. Okay, I sent all those to the GM info layer, except for these two, which are a little bit more of flavor, just advisories. If you do flavor advisories, I recommend doing something, writing something in here that doesn't need to change. So don't do something in here that your players are going to ask to try to change, because otherwise you're going to have to grab it and type something new or something. Just a flavor item to have something in there. Then next thing to do would be down here on the bottom. What I did is I created checklists. So basically, I know that all the players have actions that they can serve, and that there were multiple departments in each ship. Each player would have one responsibility within those departments: engineering, the bridge. So the way I made these is very similar to everything else. I actually just went on Google and found a PNG image, which is this blue box here. If you go on Google or Bing, Bing is actually surprisingly good for images. I know nobody uses Bing, but for images, it can be really, really good. And search for, high-tech PNG or HUD, HUD, PNG, something like that, and just look around for stuff that you would like. These really fit what I was looking for, and then all I did was I added a title for each of the departments of the ship, and then the general actions they could take, each of the actions that they can take, and then how much resource they would have to spend on that action for command points or whatever. So that way it's just a quick reference guide, and it looks like it belongs in here. Once you've done that, if there's anything I haven't covered that's critical for your system, like the whatever game you're running, then that's what needs to go in here. You need to find a spot for it and just get in the mind of an engineer. How would you want to alert a crew to things that they need to know? And this is how I solved that issue, which was there shouldn't be a button you push for these. These are actions you can take, and maybe they have a little checklist that reminds them of actions that they should be taking in a combat situation. Once you've done that, the last thing to do really is flavor. Just add random bullshit. I mean, I found this when I was looking for my checklist PNG, and I liked it a lot. It was just too busy for the checklists, so I put it in here anyway. And then with the Roll20 tool, I added these ellipses to make it look like orbits, just like very elliptical orbits. And then I added some markers here. I'm an engineer, I'm a nerd, so it just looking like retrograde and prograde in different directions. And then over here, I'm extra, and I have Photoshop, like I said, so I had a map of their ship, and I just traced the outline of the ship in Photoshop and made it a PNG and put it in here. Sorry if you can find one like that, cool, but I couldn't, which is why I did it. And then this is just random information that means nothing. This red piece right here is on the GM layer, and I can show them damage by moving it to the token layer if I do that. But do whatever you want, have fun, go crazy with it, whatever is going to make things. The point of this is not just for being fun with the players, it is also to decrease your workload, because it's all right here. Even though it sounds like a lot of work on the front end, so much easier on the back end in a different feel. All right, the last thing that I will touch on before I close out this video is sounds. If you're not using sounds, you really, really need to be. And I made a video already. It's very long, but I covered a whole lot of information on how to use sounds in Roll20. So if you don't know how to use that, or you don't use sounds very often, including sound effects, then maybe check that video out. With this page, what I did was automatically set a background ambience that sounds like... this is the sound going on. That sounds like just a buzzing of a radar, and then you can stack things on top of it. So maybe I'll add something that sounds like other ship systems going on. And then importantly, I have sounds for my master caution and master warning. So this is how this will work. When something happens in game, I'll go to the GM info overlay. Say they're getting scanned. I'll select the scan detected, and I'll select the master caution. And then I'll just send those to the token layer. Now they're visible to the players, and I'll go over, press my master caution button. So that way I don't even have to GM that. Like, I don't even have to describe it with my voice. They're going to hear it and get anxious and check it out. Here I had a missile warning one that was a bit homebrew, but I put that in there. And then again, I would send that to the missile warning and then play my master warning tone. This is a whole different take on ship combat, but I think your players could have a lot of fun with it. And once you've done all this work, I keep this around, and I keep it for whenever the players get in ship combat. They find it very helpful and a good place to get a little bit more into the setting. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have. Good luck, enjoy this, and yeah, let me know if you have any input in the comments.